Workers of Area 51. What is in there? Grandfather was stationed there for 20 years. He would never talk about it, literally took it to his grave. Time to grab a shovel. My grandfather was also briefed and about to ship out there before he retired from the Air Force. The only thing he said to me about it was if there were any aliens there. They're all dead now. I was 12. Still the most ambiguous answer he's ever given me about his military career. Also he said they were working on the nuclear stealth bombers. It's mostly empty with a big airstrip. All of the facilities are super old and run down. Honestly, Area 51 is not the most secret area anymore, despite it being still classified as TSSBI with some C areas. He probably was talking about the site's security rather than actual aliens. Even if aliens come, those 50 calories will make sure they're dead. You think it was such a devotion to duty, or perhaps he was scared that the truth might hurt his family? P.S. My grandfather died saying absolutely nothing about what he did during World War II. He in fact was very scared that it may hurt us. Well, since Area 51 is a testing facility, and not an alien prison, I'd say he didn't want OP to tell other people what was happening there and end up getting them all in federal prison. I mean, hasn't it been declassified that it is home to black projects, highly classified, and a well-known experimental facility for aircraft development? Yes, its existence been declassified, but not what goes on there. Basically the government came out and said yes, this base is real but what we do there is top secret, most likely technology, weaponry, and aircraft. People who think aliens are living there are delusional. Please note, I'm not saying believing in aliens is delusional. If there are aliens, they sure as shit aren't hanging out in a now declassified location. Nothing. Very boring. Please don't visit. Nice try, FBI. 50 progressively smaller areas, one inside the other like Matryoshka dolls. So you mean it is a Russian base? I know this is satire, but I've been working in Area 51 for 6 months now as a mechanic with the US Air Force. Fun fact, this actually counts as a deployment and I get extra pay for working at Area 51. There's really not much here. We used to use the base to test spy planes, but after it became popular in the media we moved spy plane testing to Area 52. These days the only interesting things on base are the Blockbuster, the Toys R Us, and the Martian Embassy. You say there's Blockbuster and expect us not to invade? Classified. Redacted. Look, we're just normal people like all the rest of you. I put on my pants one Zaflan at a time. Believe me, there is nothing special here. It's not like an alien race is slowly introducing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to terraform your planet into a hotter climate so your ice caps will melt and decimate your population to give them a new home because Mars dried up due to our mass cultivation of its resources. It's just planes and stuff. Trust me. Fortunately, our handsomest politicians have come up with a cheap, last-minute way to combat alien-induced global warming. Starting in 2063, we will simply drop a giant ice cube into the ocean every now and again. Don't worry, a fuck ton of us are about to find out on September 20th. Mark the date. Still, the thought that the fucking United States military had to move shit because of a meme is hilarious to me. Storm Area 51 is a fake Facebook event to come by in waves on the 20th of September 2019. They aren't gonna move shit. They are gonna use non-lethal deterrent on whatever gaggle of idiot think they can't stop them all and we will see a lot of trespassing convictions. If you think beanbag rounds, rubber bullets, CS gas and water cannons can't stop you all at a military base then please be my entertainment as I watch a herd of retards get dropped on live stream. I skated in there on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. It was neat. Half-Life 3. Sad crowbar noises. Real life anime girls. There are a lot of joke answers in this thread. Here's a real one. My father used to work at Sandia National Laboratories, the government facility that's in charge of Area 51. He was a high-ranking scientist at one of their research and development locations. tasked with working on top secret projects in the fields of metallurgy and material science. When I, then a preteen with more curiosity than sense, discovered that he worked at one of the other areas, I wasted no time in interrogating him about extraterrestrials, spaceships, and all of those other concepts that I had associated with the notorious site. He answered my questions as best he was able, and even introduced me to a handful of people who had actually worked there in the past. I was, in a word, disappointed. Since its inception, Area 51 has been a location for developing and testing flight and ballistics technology. The idea that it housed aliens was started after a now declassified incident caught a lot of local attention. At the time, there was a fair amount of concern that hostile foreign governments would be able to derive some kind of usable data from the mishap. So when the idea that an unidentified flying object had crashed started making the rounds, nobody was in any hurry to deny it. They didn't really expect anyone to believe it, of course, and they didn't think it would actually obfuscate things. But it was a better option than saying we've actually been working on an airplane that radar can't detect. Furthermore, in a case of military personnel being just like the rest of us, it turns out that the people who were aware of the fledgling rumors thought that they were pretty funny. Now, granted, all of this is entirely hearsay, and it's not like I was cleared to hear anything classified. Even so, I'm much more inclined to believe a chuckle-filled description of something mundane than I am to accept a hushed wisp of a thoroughly debunked conspiracy theory, especially when the former is being offered by someone with first-hand experience of the matter. This sounds the most realistic, honestly, which means it's the biggest lie. This is purely speculation and guesswork, but I'm pretty sure my grandpa worked there on classified planes. He couldn't tell us where he worked or what he did specifically. Sometimes he had to stay overnight for a few days but couldn't say why, and sometimes he had to call and say he wasn't going to be home that night but would be home the next day. Stuff like that makes me think it was test flights that he had to be there for, as he's a plane mechanic. He also mentioned once that his security clearance was higher than the president, and when I asked why, he said his job was need to know and the president wasn't on the list. He said he had such a high clearance level that they called people as far back as 5 years old in preschool. Now IDK if that's normal procedure for a clearance level or not, but that part always struck me as some serious stuff. He had a paper route when he was 7 and they attempted to reach the owner of that company who had long since passed, but they got in touch with the spouse who was like 98 and asked her if she remember him and could report on his character. Crazy stuff. Grandpa was retired Air Force and pretty much worked for this place his whole career, and after he retired he became a civilian contractor doing the same thing. It only exists for the sole purpose of keeping you from asking about Area 52. But what about Area 50? We are all forgetting the original area. What happened to Area 1? Juju. I find it interesting this is getting popular again. I am pretty sure it was like a nuclear test site or something. Other than the alien conspiracy stuff, the most rational explanation I'm aware of is that the site was mainly used for testing secret aircraft technology that the Pentagon was trying to keep secret from the Soviets during the Cold War. Presumably it's still used for the same thing now, minus the Cold War part. You can kind of piece together some of the projects that are active at Groom Lake if you read between the lines. First and foremost, fear reverse engineering foreign planes and testing them to better understand their capabilities and weaknesses. There was reportedly an Su-37 that crashed out there in 2017. If I were a betting man, we have at least a few more Chinese and Russian planes out there. We also know that there's a squadron of mothballed F-117s that were being made operational again. No one knows why, but I'd bet it's one of three things. 1. Fear testing a radar system capable of detecting stealth jets. 2. Developing a new radar, or visible light, absorbing diffusing paint. Or 3. Testing a next-gen avionics system in an old stealth platform to keep the new stealth platform it's designed for a secret. We also have reasonable evidence to suspect that the USAF is in the initial testing phase of the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber's replacement, thought to be called the B-21 Raider stealth bomber. Lockheed Martin cryptically showed it off under heavy covers during a map they ran in last year's Super Bowl. There have long been rumors of and circumstantial evidence corroborating the existence of a hypersonic spy plane thought to be the successor to the SR-71 Blackbird reconnaissance plane. Mysterious sonic booms over the Pacific and a contrail patterned up donuts on a rope could indicate that the USAF or CIA is testing a very fast, very high altitude almost space plane that flies faster and higher than any missile. It may be called the Aurora, and might be a militarily operational vehicle that looks similar to the X-43 that NASA tested in the mid-2000s. It's also likely that they're testing a bunch of stealthy drones, possibly next generation, stealthier versions of the RQ-4 Global Hawk reconnaissance drones, MQ-1 Predator, and MQ-9 Reaper attack drones. We know the Global Hawk has a stealthy successor, the RQ-170 Sentinel Recon drone, after one was shot down over Iran in 2011. So what they've got now is probably well beyond that. There is also a sighting of a triangular plane over Oklahoma and again over Colorado in 2016 that could be a stealthy successor to the E-6 Mercury Airborne Command Center, capable of flying high over the battlefield and replicating every radar tracking and air traffic control function you'd want for a 3D war zone in the sky. Accommodating such a big plane would explain the hangar expansion at Area 51 in 2014 and probably explain a lot of the slow-flying triangle UFO sightings. The Navy is also allegedly displeased with the performance of the F-35 and wants something more like the F-22. We know that there's a next-generation air dominance fighter program out there that's funded to fill that hole in their capability, and if it's thought to go into service in the 2030s, then prototypes are probably in initial testing now. And Area 51 would be the place to do it. There's no aliens, just advanced aircraft and prototypes. And toxic waste that was dumped here years ago but has mostly been cleaned up in the last couple of decades.